Many people, when leaving a toxic relationship, wonder whether they should do no contact or limited/low contact. Today, we're going to be talking about what those mean and how to follow through with them. And today's self-help tip will be on one way to handle reactive abuse. Thank you for joining us on Breaking Free with Kerry and Tara, the podcast where we talk about strategies, tips, and tricks for navigating and recovering from toxic relationships.
I'm your host, Dr. Kerry McAvoy, a mental health specialist with over 20 years of counseling experience and the author of Love You More, an inside graphic look at my survival of a narcissistic relationship.
And I'm your other host, Tara Blair-Ball, certified relationship coach, abuse survivor, and author of Reclaim and Recover, Heal from Toxic Relationships with the 7-Step Guided Journal.
We're thrilled that you're here with us today. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and leave us a review and let us know what you think of the show.
Often when clients reach out to me, they are looking for help and support on what to do once they have left their unhealthy, toxic, and or abusive relationship. They're unsure whether they want to do no contact, limited, low contact. They don't really know what those things mean. And so let's talk about today what those things mean, how you follow through with them, and how do you even imagine sticking to them. So let's start by defining what those two different topics mean. Let's start with no contact, because no contact is really the easiest to define because it's very clear, black and white. No contact means no contact of any kind with your ex. No texting, no calling, no emailing, no DMing, none of that, no contact whatsoever. It also usually means that we are following through with blocking, unfollowing, unfriending, complete erasure of that person from your life. If you see them on a street, you just keep walking by, you don't say hello, you just keep going, you pretend they don't exist. That's no contact. Super, not easy, but very clear, easy way to define. Most people recommend that you follow through with no contact for at least 30 days. If we think of breakups like a wound, keeping contact can be like continually aggravating that wound. Plus, we can find out things that are really upsetting and terrible. We may find out that they've moved on. We may find out that they're entertaining or talking with others. We may have emotional conversations that we're not quite ready to have yet, like they miss us or we realize that we miss them. And we need that time to process and work and start on our own healing. That's why at least 30 days is the recommendation, that you sort of remove that person from your life, not necessarily forever, but for this time, and focus on yourself, learning what you need to prioritize, how to care for yourself, finding some things to fill that void that that person used to fill. Like if you used to hang out every Friday night, finding something else to do every Friday night. So it's not you just sitting home, pining, crying, and missing them. Limited to low contact should only be done in certain situations. Those situations might be if you share children together, if you have a business together, if you work or go to school together, or if you have other sort of financial things that need to be squared away. The important thing about limited to low contact is it's still very much like no contact, meaning that it's clearly defined and there are clear boundaries, but you are still having to have some contact, clearly. For example, if you're limited to low contact because of children, you would only discuss aspects of the children. So dropping them off, arrangements, payments when it comes to the children. You may even want to choose to have those conversations only over email instead of over text, unless in case of an emergency. You may even choose to limit those conversations time-wise, like only 5 minutes, as quick and possible. You're trying to think of your ex as a coworker that you do not want to talk too much outside of business hours and don't really like all that much. It's good to see it as that. You're trying to be business professional, stick to the boundaries in place. What's very important is that you are not making excuses to talk to that ex. For example, just reaching out to them about your kids just to talk about your kids, so you have an excuse to talk to them about it. And again, limited to low contact can be done at least for 30 days or just indefinitely. And it's important to really evaluate and assess which is best for you in your particular situation. I, for example, worked with one of my exes. I still did no contact with him. And that meant that if I saw him in the hallway, I didn't say hello. I just kept walking. I needed to do that in that particular relationship because he was not willing to allow me to keep boundaries when it came to polite friendliness. For example, I tried to keep boundaries of what we would talk about, and he completely ignored them and disrespected them to the point that I had to choose to go non-contact with him because of that. I wasn't able to just be friendly with him because he would just keep pushing boundaries. He was not a safe person for me to continue that with. So it didn't matter that we shared a space every single day. I was still no contact with him and still am today. I'm very happy about that.
Carrie, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts and reactions to that. I find this is one of the hardest things for people to do in the beginning, and there's for lots of complicated reasons. One is because we have a trauma bond with that individual. So, yeah, and so initially, and often we've been discarded. We're not the ones that left. We're the ones that have been left. So here we are feeling like we have this ongoing relationship where we're throwing all of ourselves into it, and then suddenly they're gone. We have no closure. We have this intense attachment. They've made us dependent on them for decisions and direction, and even a sense of our sense of ourself, for approval for ourselves. And suddenly now all of that has disappeared, and we're wobbly on legs that can barely emotionally stand. So when I hear people contact me about this, it feels literally like they're in an intense withdrawal from a very addictive substance. It's painful. It's so painful. And I remember those days for me where I was clinging. Now, I didn't get the advice to go no contact or low contact because I wasn't in the circles where people were giving me help like that. He actually cut me off. I mean, literally cut me off everywhere. So he forced no contact on me, but it was a saving grace for me that happened. So yeah, I hear you, but I also know that this comes off for a lot of us. It comes out of the blue, and it feels shocking, like we've been plunged into icy cold water. But I agree, it is the first incredibly important step to healing. And partly one of the things is that our autonomic system has been in a heightened state of arousal, of fight or flight, for certainly weeks, months, and maybe for some of us years. So here we are in this heightened level of adrenaline and cortisol mixture that's not good for us. And I know for me, whenever there was contact, immediately my blood pressure went up. I could feel my heart pounding. My hands would start to shake. I'd feel like I was coming apart. That isn't healthy. That's a sign that this is a very toxic relationship, very damaging relationship. So I often tell people, no contact is you're doing a favor. It's a part of your self-care plan. It's you coming through and loving on yourself and saying, you know what? I need to just rest from all of this hyper intense relationship that has just kept me on pins and needles.
I think too, like I mentioned earlier, it's about taking your power back. Even if you've been the one discarded, you are choosing to block them. Yeah. You are choosing not to receive that contact, not to just allow them to walk back in your life whenever they want. You are taking some of that power back. And I think that's a way to reframe it. So it's not just, oh, I was left, I was abandoned, etc. It is about, I am choosing to do this for me because it is self-care. It is self-love. I am loving myself right now by not re-engaging in that addiction. And literally it has been, those of us who are experienced trauma bonds, it has been equated to those of us who are addicted to heroin. Mm-hmm. And that is an intense way to view it, that you are literally addicted to this person and that cycle of abuse that you have with that person. Yeah. And letting that go and making some different choices. And you're right, it can feel cruel and difficult and a lot of different things, but also that it gives you that time to really evaluate, what are my boundaries and what do they need to look like differently? So for example, boundaries might be, for one, you have the container of no contact or limited/low contact. That provides you a container, but there are other boundaries within that. For example, you might need to set boundaries with mutual friends, as in you don't want to hear about your ex or what they're doing. You would prefer not to. So that's a boundary there. You may even want to set boundaries with yourself. Like if I get on the computer late at night, I'm going to try to stalk their social media. So I need to stay off the computer late at night, or I need to make sure it's difficult to access their social media. That's a boundary we need to put on ourselves, because we're never going to find anything that's going to make us feel good about ourselves if we're looking at their social media. We need to start realizing that there are things that we can do to take care of ourselves, like refinding out hobbies or interests, caring for our bodies. In my previous relationship, I was divorced. We had children together, so I had to do limited or low contact. And I really had to focus on caring for myself in really basic ways, like hungry, angry, lonely, tired, that halt that we talk about a lot, because I had forgotten who I was in that relationship. And it had been a long time since I'd eaten well, since I'd exercised. I really had to bring that back for myself. I have this time now. So what can I do with this time, and how do I claim this time for me? And that meant learning how to eat healthy again, and sitting down when I eat. That was a big one for me. I would just eat standing up in the kitchen and just shove whatever's in my mouth in front of the pantry, and making some different choices that were more loving to myself than I'd done in the past.
Yeah, because I wanted to stop you, because you're very good at, I love how structured you are, and you can tell you do a lot of coaching. Do you find it easy though? Honestly, was that easy for you? I mean, I know for me, I felt like I was falling from a cliff and I was hanging on by my fingernails is how it felt to me. So to make, like, even that suggestion where you said to force yourself to sit down, was that easy? Did you have to like literally pick yourself up by the nape of your neck and walk your little butt over to the table and sit down? Because for me, some of the times, literally, here's true confession. This is one of the things I did to stalk mine. He blocked me everywhere. But one of the things that wasn't blocked is that the girlfriend he's with is on WhatsApp, and they have a photo. So you have your photo. And I knew he used photos as a way to communicate. That's how he did it with his son. It was the messages they were sending back and forth to each other. So even when they weren't talking, they would change their photos to reflect something. Well, I would start watching the photo. What was the new profile photo? And I had to get to a place where I like, no, you're not looking. You're not looking. So was it easy? Was it hard?
Absolutely, it was hard. The first step is always identifying for me. I identify, and usually I talk to people I can trust, my support people. I'm like, this is what I notice about myself. I'm doing this. You know what I mean? And I start sharing that. Oh, I've been doing this. I've been doing this. I've been trying to blah, blah, blah. But it's like when I make that confession, when I put it out in the world, share it with someone safe, I've put it out that I have some degree of willingness to make that change. Now, I may not have that willingness that day, but now that I've sort of put it out in the world, I've sort of started that progress to recognize that it's not something I want to do. And I start having that negative feeling when I do it, because I've identified it. Now I have that negative feeling every time I do it, and I would stand in the kitchen and I'm like, this is not what I should be doing. Or I would finish eating and I've been standing up in the kitchen and I'm like, that's not how I want to do. And of course, shame makes it worse, right? Yeah. I can't shame myself as a result, because then I'm just going to keep doing it to rebel. But framing it in the, I've put the willingness, let me try it. Let me try to remember this next time. And also just celebrating when I did. Like I still remember the first time I sat down to eat. It felt really weird and uncomfortable. But then afterward, I was like, you know what? I didn't eat so fast. And I enjoyed how my food tasted differently. And it was hard and lonely for me to sit at that table by myself when I'd been in that marriage for nearly 10 years. And, it was hard and lonely. My kids weren't there with me. It was just me by myself. But it was a really good first step in like, I can be by myself. I can love this person that I am, that I'm growing to be. Was it easy? Absolutely not. But it is about identifying, taking stock, and having some kind of community that we can feel comfortable sharing with. I think too, it's about recognizing that we've hit some kind of rock bottom.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you're making, is that it really, really helps. And here's the other piece, is that not all help and input and support is equal. And a lot of the support system that we have when we're in these relationships are also not very healthy. They're not very well. Or they're people who are just, they're not aware of what we've been going through and aware of what we need. And so they don't really know how to show up now for us in this place. So I agree. I have found, and this is one of the reasons why I really love social media, online support groups, is that those of us who've come around these topics, who've gone through similar things, we know what works, what's helpful to hear and what's not helpful to hear. So I find it really pivotal to make sure to surround ourselves with people who are non-judgmental, who can act as an accountability partner without shaming us, who know how to check in, know that 10 o'clock text may be exactly what you need, because that's the point that you're struggling with the worst temptation, but to really understand that where our vulnerable spots are. I agree wholeheartedly. It's hard. For me, I still struggle with no contact. And I'm not talking direct contact anymore. I'm talking just even an awareness of that person's life. I think in fact, I think 30 days, to me, you need to view this as a permanent thing, not a 30-day thing, but this is going forward. This is your ticket to freedom, is freedom from this person's impact on your life. Because this is what I found. The minute I'm aware of this person, they have control over me again. And suddenly I then think about what they might think about my life and what I'm doing. And when I've done that, I've given away my power again. And I don't want that person to have any power over me at any level ever again. So I view this as a permanent situation. And for me, that's been even when I know that I'm being stalked sometimes, I deliberately in my mind say, I'm not giving that power over me. I refuse to then change my behavior because there might be some observation of what's happening here. No contact for me is a freedom bill. It gives me freedom.
I totally agree with you. What I will say is a lot of clients, and I myself, are like, 30 days is too long.
Really?
30 days is too long. I can't do that. 30 days is too long. Or I get lots of excuses. And I get it. I was there too. You know what I mean? But I totally think it's helpful just to make 30 days as a benchmark, because I think the majority of us, when we get to the end of those 30 days and we realize all that freedom that we have now, how we have made our lives richer and more full than they felt at the beginning, that we make the decision to potentially make it indefinitely. And really, I think it should be indefinitely when our previous partner was unhealthy, toxic, abusive. There's not a lot of hope for those kinds of relationships being built back. And I don't think we have to be friends with all of our exes. I am not friends with I'm friends with very few of my exes, and those were safe, healthy relationships, but those were few and far between. Yeah. And I think we really need to be cognizant of those things for ourselves. So, Kerry, you have a community that would be helpful. Tell us more.
Yeah, I do. It's Toxic Free Relationship Club. It's it's a subscription-based membership where we meet on Facebook, but we really spend more time on Discord, which gives us ability to have these conversations where we know there's no observation of any kind whatsoever. You have to be invited to that spot. You would have to, only those who are aware of it can find it. And it just gives you the freedom to sort of let down and be yourself. And it's been amazing. And then we also meet once a month for video chats. In fact, one's coming up. I'm really looking forward to. And those are not educational. Those we just hang out, because we just need safe places to be ourselves and to talk about our kids or talk about whatever is happening in our life. The fact that we had maybe a birthday or maybe it's a weekend we just spent alone and how that felt. We just want to have it to be about normal events in our lives and how we're going through it. And yeah, it's been amazing. Can I segue back for a second about low contact? Because I actually think low contact's harder. Do you agree?
Oh, I think it's harder. Absolutely.
Like absolutely. Way harder.
Yeah. I think too, and that's a good point to mention. I think the hardest thing too is a lot of us think we'll set a boundary and they'll follow it. Okay. If it's our toxic, unhealthy, abusive, narcissistic ex, they're going to make sure they don't follow it. Yeah. Right. And the hardest part is that we have to maintain our boundary. And that is exhausting, especially having to do it continually. So an example of a boundary that I had with my ex is that we communicated on children arrangements via email, and it was only over text message for emergency. He would still text me anyway. So what I started doing is if the if it was something I needed to respond to, I would respond over email. Okay. So I would not be the one re-engaging over text unless it was emergency. So I was enforcing my boundary by sticking to email. And that's important and valuable because depending on where you live, courts value email communication more than text communication. You can use email definitely in court documents. So that's a way to give yourself a level of protection in terms of your limited or low contact. But it's exhausting. And if it was anything not about my children, I did not respond to it. That was how I upheld the boundary, but it's hard.
Yeah. For me, I do it with certain family members, and it creates emotional work, way more emotional work. I find that I tend to get more invested in what happens in that conversation. And I often have to when I end the call or end the contact, I have to then decompress and process, have safe people to be able to say, this is what happened. This is how it made me feel. This is how I'm doing it. But it's tough. That's why I think that if we can avoid low contact, I would urge us not to have. I know people say, but that's my granddaughters we're talking about, or, I want contact with my kids, so I need to have contact with this person to have, but if you can't always not have low contact, but if you can avoid it, man, I would urge people to do that.
I agree. Part of the reason too that I came up with my course, How to Go No Contact with Your Ex, is providing some structure and accountability. So this course is a text/audio-based course. So every day at 9:00 your time, you'll get a text message and an audio message, as well as a challenge for that day. And then you respond back when you complete that challenge. But it provides some structure for us, whether we're going no contact or limited contact for that first 30 days. So what do I do today? And I think too, that's the difficulty of doing either one of these. What do we do with our time? And because if we have all this time, we're not doing anything to fill that void that person left. Yeah. We're just going to be missing, overwhelmed by grief. And then we're left just a husk. Yeah. We're not filling our life and making it better. And this course provides a structure and the challenges to be able to allow you to do that, plus a degree of accountability, because you have to text me back that you've completed each challenge, which I think is very valuable and helpful. It is a course that I wish that I had when I was going through my limited/low contact, because I started filling up that empty time by swiping on dating apps. And was that the healthiest for me? Absolutely not. It definitely was not. I did it. It was a mess and I was messy, but this provides some healthier options for us.
I love that, Tara. I didn't know that you had that. So again, what do you have a name for this course? What's it called?
It's called How to Go No Contact with Your Ex, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I didn't co-parent, but boy, I remember that. You're right. Now for me, I had the unfortunate benefit of my son was ill, so my time was spent at the hospital. And that, you're right, that focus, that emergency focus really caused me not to be aware that I was going no contact. But I know for those of us, suddenly there's a large hole. And what do you do with that massive hole? So this is awesome. I love that. That's great. So it's important when we first get discarded or we walk away, we go no contact, and we view it at least. And I agree with you. I think it helps to set a time limit. You say to yourself, I'm going to do 30 days. And then when you get to the end of 30 days, you can reassess. Did it help? Am I doing better? Am I healthier? Was this good for me? And then decide whether or not you're going to set another timeline, or maybe you're going to decide to do longer or indefinite or whatever. But that's really great advice. I like that.
In today's self-help tip, we're going to talk about one way to handle reactive abuse. Now, reactive abuse means that we are responding to abuse by being abusive ourselves. So we're heightened, we're escalated, we might be yelling, we might be doing any manner of things that we would not do if we were not also in an abusive situation. And one way to handle that is to remove ourselves physically, if we can, or emotionally from that situation. It might be walking out of the room, taking a walk around the neighborhood. It could also be taking a deep breath and remaining silent. But it's because we want to be a different person. We're not that person. We've become that person because of the unhealthy, abusive situation that we're in. And so taking ourselves out is a way to remind us of who we actually are and the person that we want to be.
Yeah, I found myself often just listening, or at least appearing to listen, and nodding and waiting for the person to stop, and calming myself down, like focusing on my breath was very, very helpful for me in those very toxic, upsetting moments. So I love this. This is a great self-help tip. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. How are you doing with no contact? Are you needing the extra support? Be sure to check out my online support group or Tara's course for 30 days to get tips and support if you're doing it right now and in the tough throes of that. Be sure to follow us and like and subscribe this podcast and leave us a review. Let us know what you think and share it with a friend this week. If you know somebody who's going no contact and have a rough go, this may be the episode they need to hear. You can follow us both on Instagram. Tara is at tara.relationshipcoach, and I'm Kerry McAvoy, PhD. And join us next week on Monday when we talk about the ex's attempt to love bomb after a split. And we'll see you then.